So let's begin our session today. So we'll continue from where we left yesterday, and yesterday we left at understanding the biotic interactions. All right, we were discussing the biotic interactions, and today we are going to carry forward from where we left yesterday. And the first topic that we are going to learn today is what is basically called as ecological succession. Ecological succession is a topic which has been asked by UPSC many number of times. Ecological succession. Ecological succession. All right. What is ecological succession? Basically, what happened that when a land is formed, it's a kind of virgin land. You are not able to hear me. Am I audible to everyone? All right. Okay. So when the land is formed, it's a kind of barren land with no life form on it. There is no life form on the land. Then gradually this land is inhabited. This land is inhabited gradually. There will be a sequence of species. There will be a sequence of species that will start inhabiting the land. This sequence of species that inhabit a newly formed land is known as ecological succession. This is known as ecological succession. So ecological succession is nothing but it is a series of different species replacing one another. In a sequence that is basically known as ecological succession. So ecological succession happens when a land which is created or a land on which complete life form has been removed and a new series of sequence of things begin, that is known as ecological succession. Like for example, let me give you an example of ecological succession. Let us say this is the ocean floor. This is the ocean floor. This is ocean. From the ocean floor comes lava. Lava gets out, oozes out from the mid-oceanic ridges. Think about a time when this lava will come out of the ocean and an island will be formed. A volcanic island will be formed. This volcanic island that will be formed has no life form. When it is formed, because it is just a lava, solidified lava in the form of igneous rock. Right now it is not inhabited by any kind of life. Then comes a sequence of different organisms start developing on it. For example, grasses will come. From the grasses, next grasshoppers will come on. Grasshoppers, frogs will come on. Frogs से snakes आएंगे. And this way, this entire island will be inhabited by life which was earlier barren. This sequence of series of different life forms coming on a newly created land, it is known as ecological succession. It is known as ecological succession. So if you want to write down, quickly write down about ecological succession. Write down ecological succession. Ecological succession is the phenomena by which, ecological succession is a phenomena in which different communities, ecological succession is a phenomena in which different communities replace each other. Different communities replace each other in a series. Different communities replace each other in a series, starting from the minutest of the organisms to the largest of the organisms. Starting from the minutest of the organisms to the largest of the organisms. This is known as ecological succession. This is known as ecological succession. For example, when a volcanic island is created, that volcanic island does not consist of any kind of life form. Gradually, it is inhabited by maybe some autotrophs. These autotrophs will allow the heterotrophs to come up and live on this piece of land. And this sequence of different species coming up and gradually one species replacing the other, that is basically known as ecological succession. This is basically known as ecological succession. Yes, please make this diagram quickly. Yes, but it is not natural. NV633233306, it's not natural. Myna replacing sparrow is an invasive species. If it is naturally taking place, yes, it's ecological succession. Yes. If it is natural, then yes, it's ecological succession. Now there are different type of ecological succession. Let's discuss about them. New land with no life form. There is new land with no life form. This new land with no life form is inhabited by the first species. All right. This new land with no life form is now inhabited by the first community. This first community is known as pioneer community. This first community is known as pioneer community. Remember this, very important. Yes, yes, Janvi, that's right. That's right. The first community that comes and occupy the new land without any life form is known as the pioneer community. Now this pioneer community will be replaced by the second community. This will be replaced by the third. This will be replaced by the fourth. And when the final and the fifth most stable community will be achieved, this most stable community, most dominant community, most stable community, or the most dominant community that will be established, this is known as climax community. This is known as climax community. So you start the ecological succession from the pioneer community to the climax community. At the time of climax community, the ecological succession stops because the most advanced or the most dominating species has arrived. This is climax community. All right, so ecological succession is nothing. Ecological succession, it is nothing but the series of steps from pioneer community to climax community. All right, a land with no life form gradually acquires life form and gradually attains a stable species dominating the entire landform, that is known as climax community. All right, so ecological succession is just a story from the pioneer community to the climax community. Have you drawn this? Shall we go ahead? All right. Now, so there is this pioneer community. Then there will be second community. Then there will be third community. And let's say the fourth one is the climax community. This is ecological succession. And this ecological succession, these steps in ecological succession, they are called or they are known as series. S-E-R-E-S, series. Series are the steps in the ecological succession. Yes, Mashinda, it will be lost. It will be lost. All right. All right. So you can think about this way. You can think about this way that when this new land is created, this new land will have grasses plus insects. Then it may happen that it may have grasses and let's say animals rather than insects. Now the animals are there. Then it may have trees and animals. And lastly, it may be trees and man. So this is the climax community made up of trees and man. Correct? Yes. All right. Yes. Yes, Hasini, it will be. It will be. So grasses and insects, they become the pioneer community, and trees and men will become the climax community. And this sequence is known as ecological succession, and these individual steps, they are known as series. They are known as series. The individual steps are known as series. Now, there are different type of ecological successions. All right, there are different type of ecological successions. So we are doing ecological succession. Those of you who have joined us right now, we are doing ecological succession. No. Yeah, that is human evolution. All right. Human beings, see, ancient human to modern man is not ecological succession. We are the same species, Homo sapiens. All right. We are the same species. We do not consider single creature evolution. All right. We do not see single creature evolution. So do not confuse it with evolution. Now, we are looking into types of ecological succession. Types of ecological succession. There is one thing known as primary succession, and second, it is known as secondary succession. Primary succession is for the new land. New land. All right. No, never ever this land had any has had any habitation whatsoever. Never ever this land ever had any kind of habitation. A freshly created land from volcanic eruptions, volcanic islands, the freshly created land when it will undergo ecological succession, that is known as primary succession. That is known as primary succession. For example, when a new volcanic island experience habitation for the first time. When the new volcanic island experience habitation for the first time, that is known as primary succession. Now, it is also possible that a land which has already achieved habitation suddenly experiences second wave of volcanic eruption, such that all life form is lost again. And on that land, when the ecological succession will begin again, that is known as secondary ecological succession. That is known as secondary ecological succession. When an uninhabited, sorry, when and when a habitated island, when a habitated land, that is land which is already undergoing a succession, when a habitated land is destroyed and a new cycle of ecological succession begin. This ecological succession that begins on a land which once had a life, which once had a life form, this is known as secondary ecological succession. This is known as secondary ecological succession. Vaishnav, it may not. We cannot comment on that. That's right, Kashish. Correct. Forest that got burnt in a wildfire. अभी ऑस्ट्रेलिया में कुछ टाइम पहले there was a wildfire. Similar kind of wildfire was once there few months back in Amazon forest, right? So in those wildfires, if the land is completely wiped out of vegetation life, and then it is again habitated by the different life forms, they are known as ecological succession. Secondary ecological succession. So under destroyed, it is written a new cycle of ecological succession begin, which is known as the secondary ecological succession, right? No, 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 no. See, for ecological succession, the land must not be destroyed. Secondary ecological succession ke upar, it's not necessary that land is destroyed. Land destruction is not mandatory for secondary ecological succession. Like for example, volcanic island, yeah, new volcanic island formed. This new volcanic island gives rise to what? This gives rise to primary succession. And let us say that you have achieved the climax community. You have achieved the climax community due to natural disaster or due to artificial disaster. Due to natural disaster or due to artificial disaster, man-made disaster, this life is vanished from this land. Land is not destroyed, only life has gone. All right, so this is primary succession. Now, because of a natural disaster or an artificial disaster, life is vanished. Now the succession that will begin. Now the succession that begins, it is known as, what it is known as? Very good. This is known as secondary succession. This is known as secondary succession. All right. So secondary succession is the sequential development. All right. It's not on a fresh begin. It is actually sequential succession, not the primary. It is the secondary succession, sequential succession. Yes, in the second succession, in the sequential succession, in the secondary succession, the climax community may be different. The climax community may be different. It's not necessary that they have to be same. All right. Try to apply your common sense, and I'm asking a question. Where will ecological succession be fastest? A, continent margins. B, continent middle. All right, the middle part of the continent. Continent margins. C, hilly areas. D, none of the above. Where do you think ecological succession is going to be maximum? The answer is continent middle. Continent middle because of large landmass. There is a greater chance that the biodiversity may be maximum. And when the biodiversity is maximum, the ecological succession will be fastest. Yes, correct. Correct. All right. So the climax community will be, so the climax community, it will be quickly achieved in the continent middles, not hilly areas. Hilly areas, temperature, living condition, water, बहुत सारी चीजें नहीं होती hilly areas में. You see that even, see, if you look at the biodiversity across the world, the maximum biodiversity is seen in the continental regions, right? The maximum biodiversity is seen in the continental region and particularly the plain area. Majority, maximum biodiversity in the world today is seen in the continent margins, sorry, in the continental middle areas and particularly the plain areas. Yes. See, basically the thing is this, there is no overlap. Those of you who are asking the question, Prerna, that why not the continental margins? The continental margins, we generally see that the species or the community living in aquatic region cannot come onto the land. Are you getting my point? So succession will not take place. For succession, you need large land area with a big biodiversity. All right? Okay. Land biodiversity, see, Mira, it is a generally accepted fact that the land biodiversity is maximum in the continental middle. You see the biggest of the forests like Amazonian forest. It is very limited to the coast, but mostly located into the interior on the banks of river Amazon, right? So the majority of the biodiversity is generally seen in the plain areas, and that too in the continental middles, right? Yes, correct. That's right. All right. So this is about ecological succession. Right. Okay. Now we have to look into the concept of biodiversity. So you can make the heading as biodiversity. Make the heading as biodiversity. Biodiversity. The word bio means life and diversity means variability. So a very basic definition of biodiversity has been given by the United Nations Earth Summit of 1992. The United Nations Earth Summit of 1992 has defined biodiversity as nothing but variability among the living organisms across different ecosystems. All right, it is the variability among various life forms. It is variability among various life forms across various ecosystems. across various ecosystems. All right. So biodiversity is nothing but it is the variability across different life forms, across various ecosystems, and this definition has been given by the United Nations Earth Summit that took place in 1992. Can anyone tell me where was? Yes, this Earth Summit was organized. Brazil, that's right. This was organized in Brazil, and the name of the city is Rio de Janeiro. All right, Rio de Janeiro. Right, correct. United Nations Earth Summit 1992. All right. Now, this biodiversity is the variability among the different life forms. And this variability can occur between different levels. This variability may be in terms of number of species. This variability may be in terms of genes. And this variability may be in terms of ecosystem. All right. So this variability can take place at multiple places. This variability can be in terms of number of species. A region having more number of species than the region having less number of species. There is difference in biodiversity. Number of genes in a makeup of the human being, number of genes in a makeup of the chimpanzee, number of genes in the makeup of the mouse. There is difference. There may be variability across different ecosystems. Variability across different ecosystems. So any kind of variability, be it at the level of genes, be it at the level of species, or be it at the level of ecosystem, this is known as biodiversity. This is known as biodiversity. Right? Now, India. So there is a concept known as mega diverse regions of the world. Among the mega diverse regions, one of the region is India. Mega diverse regions are the regions that account for large biodiversity even in limited area. So what are biodiversity hotspots of the mega diverse regions? Mega diverse regions are those regions that account for a large biodiversity in a very limited area. India has been declared as one of the mega diverse regions because India has 7% of all recorded species on Earth. With just 2.4% of total land area. Out of the total land area of Earth, out of the total land area on Earth, India has just 2.4% of the total land area. But it accounts for 7% of all recorded species on Earth. All right. It accounts for 7% of all recorded species on Earth. And it has just 2.4% of the total land area. And it also has 18% of global population. All right. ये एक additional factor not to be related there. But India is known as a mega diverse region because India has very limited land area but a very high biodiversity. Almost 7% of the all recorded, almost 7% of all recorded species on Earth have been found in India, are found in India. All right. With just 2.4% of the total land area on Earth. All right. This is the beauty of India as a biodiverse or mega diverse region. Right. Let's go ahead. Now we'll look into levels of biodiversity. Levels of biodiversity. Just a minute. I'll just let you know about this biodiversity hotspot also. All right. Till that time, let's first complete this levels of biodiversity, and then we'll take over the concept of biodiversity hotspot. Biodiversity hotspot is related to conservation efforts. All right. Biodiversity hotspot is related to conservation efforts, and we are going to take care of that in a couple of minutes. But first, we are going to look into levels of biodiversity. First, understand the biodiversity, and then we'll discuss about the threats. So there are three levels of biodiversity. There may be diversity at the genetic level. There may be biodiversity at the level of species, and there may be biodiversity at the level of ecosystem. There may be biodiversity at the level of species, there may be biodiversity at the level of ecosystem, there may be biodiversity at the level of species. So what is genetic biodiversity? Genetic biodiversity is nothing but it is an intraspecific. It is an intraspecific biodiversity. Intraspecific means within the species. Intraspecific means within the species. Within the species, variability at the level of genes. Variability in the number of genes of a species. It is known as genetic biodiversity. It is known as genetic biodiversity. So what is genetic biodiversity? Genetic biodiversity is nothing but it is the variation in genes within a particular species, or it is the variability in the number of genes of a particular species. Like for example, yes, that's right. That's right. Hannah, like for example, you can say this is like there's this COVID-19 virus. There is alpha variant, there is beta variant, there is gamma variant, there is lambda variant, and now there's lambda variant, and there was delta variant. Delta in India, alpha was in UK. All right, lambda is now found from Peru, which is now again becoming a problem for the human race. All right, so this is the example of genetic diversity. So this is one organism, COVID-19, and it has different genes. Presence of different genes resulted into different types of genetic composition within the same species. All right, this is the example of, you can say, genetic diversity. All right, like for example, in humans, you see a different kind of characteristic features: black hair, brown hair, blonde hair, red hair, white skin, dark skin, yellow skin. All right, black eyes, brown eyes, blue eyes, cat eyes. There are different type of eyes. Where this thing is coming from? This thing comes from genetic diversity. All right, this is coming from genes. Our genes determine our physical appearance. Genes are a particular sequence of base pairs on DNA. These genes, they result into synthesis of protein. And this synthesis of protein give shape to the body. This synthesis of protein gives shape to the body. So genes, which is known as genotype, give rise to the shape of the body, which is known as phenotype. This is my phenotype because of a specific genotype. So genes give rise to genotype, and those genes are reflected in the body in the form of phenotype. What is DNA? What is RNA? What is gene? This will be taken care of in your basic science sessions. Don't worry. All right. So the variation at the level of genes is known as genetic diversity. Is known as genetic diversity. Is this clear? Right? Okay. Let us now look at the species diversity. Species diversity. All right. Species diversity is calculated as number of individuals of one species upon total number of organisms. Upon total number of organisms. All right. Number of individuals of one species upon the total number of organisms in one area. In an area. This is known as species diversity. देखिए जेनेटिक डाइवर्सिटी क्या है? लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल we all have different bodily structures. Some have black hair, some have brown hair, some have blonde hair, some have red hair. Some have black eyes, some have brown eyes, some have blue eyes, and some have cat eyes. Some are bright skinned, some are dark skinned, some are brown skinned, some are yellow skin. These bodily characteristics, they emerge from the different type of genes that are present in the body. And this variability at the level of the genes is known as genetic diversity. It is known as genetic diversity. So like for example, if you are seeing seven, let's say there are seven there are 7 different genes in coronavirus. So that shows that the genetic diversity of the coronavirus is 4, because there are 4 different genes which are present in different coronaviruses. All right, that is genetic diversity. And then we are discussing the second, that is known as the species diversity. And species diversity is calculated as number of individuals of one species divided by the total number of organisms which are found in an area. So let us say, when will species diversity be 1? When will species diversity be 1? When both are equal, the numerator and denominator are equal. So can I say that species diversity is 1 when there will be just one species present? Species diversity will be 1 when only one species are present. All right, so like for example, number of individuals of one species, let's say number of species of A, number of individuals of A upon how many species are present? Only 1. So number of species, total number A, which is 1. That means when species diversity value is 1, no biodiversity at all. No biodiversity at all. All right. Now, what if there are two species with equal number of organisms? Suppose there is A with 50 organisms and B with 50 organisms. What will be the species diversity of A? What will be the species diversity of A? Very good. It will be half. 50 divided by 100. Right? 50 divided by 100. So this is how you calculate the species diversity. Suppose if there are 100 species and each species is having, let's say there are 100 species and each species is having 100 organisms, then what is the species diversity? 100 divided by 10,000, 0.01. That's correct. All right. So the species diversity will be 100 divided by 10,000, which is equal to 1 by 100 is equal to 0.01. This shows that there is significant amount of biodiversity. All right, there will be significant amount of biodiversity. What if the species diversity is very close to 0? What will happen if the species diversity is almost close to 0? That means it is tremendously biodiverse region. When species diversity reaches 0, it shows infinite, very, very large biodiversity present. Very, very large biodiversity present. All right. So that is species diversity. That is species diversity. Now let us look at ecosystem diversity. You can simply say ecosystem diversity is nothing but number of ecosystems within a region. How many different ecosystems are present in a region, that will give you ecosystem diversity. Like for example, if you look at India, in India there is plains. So in India, there is forest ecosystem, there is estuary ecosystem, there is delta ecosystem. Delta and estuary is one and the same. There is coastal plain ecosystem, there is desert ecosystem. All right, there is mountain ecosystem. So the ecosystem diversity of India becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different type of ecosystems. Janvi, it is not feasibly possible infinite. I am just telling you when there will be tremendously very large biodiversity at that time. At that time, the value of the species diversity will approach zero. All right, so lesser the value of species diversity, lesser the value of species diversity, greater is the biodiversity. Greater is the biodiversity, right? So ecosystem diversity is the number of ecosystems within a region. That actually gives you the calculation of ecosystem diversity. That results into calculation of ecosystem diversity. From the examination point of view, you can remember this particular figure. Just a minute, let me cross check it once. Hold on. So you can write down that India is ranking 7th in the world. India is ranking 7th in the world in terms of number of mammal species. India ranks 7th in the world in terms of number of mammal species, 9th in terms of birds, 9th in terms of birds, and 5th in terms of reptile. And 5th in terms of reptile. All right, so India is having 7th largest mammal species. India is having 9th largest means 9th most diverse bird species and 5th most diverse reptile species. All right. Right. Okay. So India is having 5th largest. So this is the biodiversity of India. I already given you one of the statistics. 2.4% area accounting for 7% of total number of species. All right. This is the first fact that we have already written. Second, India ranks 7th in terms of mammal diversity. India ranks 5th in terms of reptiles. And India ranks 9th in terms of birds. 9th in terms of birds. All right, this is the biodiversity picture of India. This is the biodiversity picture of India. Right? Do remember this fact, asked in prelims many times. Asked in prelims n number of times. They can ask again. All right. You can also write one more fact here. India ranks 4th in Asia and 10th in world in terms of plant diversity. In terms of plant diversity, India ranks 4th in Asia and 10th in the world. So these are the facts associated to the biodiversity of India, right? Biodiversity of India. Now, a very important fact to understand, and that is the ecological or biodiversity hotspots. All right, biodiversity hotspots. Biodiversity hotspots. Two 2.4%. Anandini, it's 2.4%. 2.4% area, 7% total number of species. 7th rank in terms of mammals, 5th rank in terms of reptiles, and 9th rank in terms of birds. 2-minute break. Le lo. All right. Quickly write it down, those of you who are writing. Quickly. I can also drink a sip of water. Already my throat is a bit paining. Gagandeep, these are going to help you in the exam. Please develop this art of drawing these flow charts. Please develop these flow chart techniques while reading newspaper, while reading book. Whatever you are reading, please try to scribble these flow charts. It gives an impact here. See, Rohit, if there are 100 species, that's a good number of biodiversity. If there are 1,000 species, that's really very good biodiversity. If there are 1 lakh species, the biodiversity will be even better. So hypothetically, if there are infinite species, that means the calculation of the species diversity, which is number of organisms of a species upon the total number of organisms, that total number of organisms will become infinite. So any number divided by infinite is almost zero. All right, any number divided by infinity is almost zero. चले आगे. In environment and ecology, please do remember that UPSC has the tendency to ask rank of India. There is no denying in the fact. There is no denying in the fact ranks of India can be asked in environment and ecology. Yes. Previously also they have asked. Now also they can ask. The value will become zero with infinite biodiversity. All right, so let's go ahead now. We are now going to discuss the concept of biodiversity hotspot. But do remember this thing, that when a country is designated to have an area called biodiversity hotspot, that is not a good news for the country, because biodiversity hotspot is more a factor telling threat about biodiversity, threat to biodiversity rather than richness. This is not a measure of biodiversity richness. It is indeed a measure of biodiversity threat. When a particular area is given the status of biodiversity hotspot, that means that this area, has had significant biodiversity, but now this biodiversity is under threat. When a particular country is given the designation of biodiversity hotspot, last 4 chapters, just give it a plain reading. Last 4 chapters, just give it a plain reading. No need to worry. When a particular country is given the status of biodiversity hotspot, that means that this country or this region once had or is presently having a significant amount of biodiversity, but now this biodiversity is under significant threat. No, it is not UNESCO. No. Biodiversity hotspot is given by, can anyone tell me what organization gives biodiversity hotspot? Who gives the designation of biodiversity hotspot? It is UN, but I'm not sure that whether it is UNESCO or something. All right, I'll have to confirm it once, and then I'll certainly give you. Don't worry. I'll certainly give you tomorrow. Don't worry. All right. Who gave this concept of biodiversity hotspot? Who gave this concept of biodiversity hotspot? The concept of biodiversity hotspot was given in 1989 by publication of a paper. Yes, by publication of a research article by Norman Mayers. By Norman Mayers. That's right. Conservation International. That's right. Conservation International adopted the idea of biodiversity hotspot. Correct. Conservation International. Correct. It's Conservation International. Conservation International. This organization adopted the concept of biodiversity hotspot when it was published in a research article related to environment conservation in 1989, and this research article was published by Norman, Norman, Norman Mayers, Meyers, or you can simply write Myres. All right, Norman Mayers. So he is the person who coined the word biodiversity hotspot and gave this concept, which was later adopted by Conservation International. So Conservation International gave designation to those countries, those regions who was once high biodiversity rich country, which is losing its biodiversity, that is known as biodiversity hotspot. So let us now look at what conditions are required for getting the designation of the biodiversity hotspot. Conditions required for calling a region as biodiversity hotspot. There are two conditions that must be met. Number one, the place, region, or the country must be home to 1,500 endemic plant species. The region which we are trying to give the designation of biodiversity hotspot, that region must be home to 1,500 endemic plant species. Endemic means plant species. Endemic can be for anything. So endemic basically means species found only in that region. And nowhere else. This is endemic. So what is endemic? Endemic means species which are found only in one region and nowhere else. That is known as endemic. Like for example, if king cobra is not found anywhere else in the world, so king cobra is endemic to India. That species is only found in India and nowhere else. That is known as the concept of endemism. So what is an endemic species? An endemic species is nothing but the species which is found only in that particular region and nowhere else. All right? Correct, Arpitanjali, correct. Yes, Rudranil, it is possible only by correct conservation efforts. We are coming to it. Hold on. So the first condition that must be met by an area to be called as biodiversity hotspot is endemism. That is, it must be home to 1,500 endemic plant species. Pay attention, plant species. Now, second condition, 70% or more of these species must be threatened. Must be under threat. 70% or more of these species must be under threat. That is, the region is having high biodiversity and that must be threatened. So there are two conditions. The first condition is endemism and the second condition is threat. That is, 70% of the species are already getting destroyed. 70% or more than 70% of the species in this region, the plant endemic species are getting destroyed. And it must have at least 70%, it must have at least 1,500 endemic plant species. So endemism and second threat, these are the two characteristic features that are necessary for a region, country, or area to be designated as the biodiversity hotspot. So hotspot is related to threat, endemism is related to biodiversity. Now the question is, why animal species are not included here? Why animal species are not included? Can anyone guess? No, because they are mammals. No. Animal species are not included because animals are automatically directly dependent upon the plants itself. All right, animal biodiversity is directly dependent upon the plants. The more the diverse the plant species, the greater is going to be the diversity of animal species. You see, in the evergreen forest, there is a significant diversity of plant species. Consequently, there is significant diversity of animal species. But as you move to the upper regions, the animal species shrink along with the plant species. So there's a direct correlation or causation, not correlation. There's a direct causation between the animal species diversity and plant species diversity. Right? Correct. So this is the concept of biodiversity hotspot that was introduced in 1989 by the paper published by Norman Mayers. And this concept talked about protection of biodiversity hotspot, which was adopted by Conservation International. That was adopted by Conservation International. So biodiversity hotspot is having two significant terms, biodiversity and hotspot. Biodiversity is shown by endemism. That is, this region should have at least 1500 endemic plant species, and 70% of them should be already under threat. Only then that region will be known as the biodiversity hotspot. Bhagyashri, some animals depend upon plants, other animals depend upon those animals that depend upon plants. So all the organisms, don't you think that if tomorrow there will be no jungle, no plant around, हमें भी migrate करना पड़ेगा उस region में जहाँ पे plants हैं? Every organism is dependent upon plants. Those who cannot build their own food. Right? Funda clear hai? Is the funda behind? Yes, okay, good, good, good. All right, biodiversity hotspot. Now, there are 36 globally recognized biodiversity hotspot. Out of these 36, 2 are in India. So India mein biodiversity is under threat. All right. You can say, Namita, you can say that. Yes, Shubh, correct. Yes. Yeah, Grishmika, I'm coming to it. Hold on. All right, animals ke liye we basically we generally have this red data book. We are coming to it. All right, we are coming to it. So in India, out of the global 36 world recognized hotspots, India has 2. They are Western Ghats, and second, after Western Ghats, what are the second? Indo-Burma or Indo-Malayan region, the Northeast India. All right, Indo-Malayan or Indo-Burma. These are the 2 biodiversity hotspots. These are the 2 biodiversity hotspots. So one is Indo-Burma and second is Western Ghats. Sometimes you will find instead of Indo-Burma, it is Eastern Himalayas. So you may even given Eastern Himalayas, even then this answer will be correct. You may be given Western Ghats plus Sri Lanka. Yes, this is the correct name of the region. Western Ghat plus Sri Lanka, Indo-Burma, Eastern Himalayas or Indo-Malayan region. These are the important biodiversity hotspots which are related with India. Apart from this, you do not need to remember anything. Apart from this, you do not need to remember anything. All right. चले आगे. Biodiversity hotspot is done. Let's now look into the red data book. All right, red data book. Red data book. देखिए जो रेड डेटा बुक है, it is globally recognized standard for species threat. All right, this is globally recognized standard for threat perception to the species. It includes both animal and plant species. All right, it include, yes, Fahim, it's very important topic. You have seen many questions in the past coming from this topic in UPSC exam. All right, so this red data book is globally recognized standard for threat perception to the species of both animals and plants. Animals as well as plants. Right? Now, this red data book was first time published in 1966 by International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. Yes, red list कह सकते हो. Red data book is published by International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. It is a globally recognized standard for threat perception to the species, both animal and plant species. This book was for the first time published in 1966. Can you tell me what are the color of the pages of this book? What are the color of pages of this book? Red. Very good. Red. और भी कोई कलर है? बस रेड ही है. चलिए याद रखिएगा. This book has red pages, green and pink. These are the color of the pages of this particular book. There are red pages, there are pink pages, there are green pages. Let us look at what each page is given. All right, it is a publication. It's not a concept, it's a publication, Japkirat. All right, so have you written this? Have you written? Chale aage. Quickly write it down, quickly. All right, 1966 for the first year it was published. It was published for the first time in 1966. Submarine class 12th last 4 chapters, biology NCERT. Apart from this, you can read NIOS material, you can read Majid Hussain environment, you can read DR Khuller environment, you can take up IGNU notes, you can take up Shankar environment, anything. Shankar environment is one of the best, according to me. According to me, Shankar environment is one of the best. All right, let's go ahead. Red pages. Red pages are the pages representing threatened species. Representing species that face a threat. Species that face a threat. That is red pages. After red pages, there are green pages. Green pages, species that once faced the threat are no longer threatened. Species that once faced the threat are no longer threatened. They are the green pages. Then pink pages. Species which are critically endangered. Species that are critically endangered. So green are which were, so red are the species. Red pages pe the species are those which were facing a threat, which were facing a threat or which are facing a threat. All right, so red pages are those species, red pages species or red list species are those species which are facing threat of extinction. Green pages are those pages that have the species which were once in the red category, but now they have become protected. They are well large in number. And the pink pages are for the species which are critically endangered. So the green are out of danger, red are in danger, and pink are critically endangered. They are in danger. They are out of danger. These are critically endangered. All right, critically endangered. So red endangered, green out of danger, and pink critically endangered. So now let's look at what are the different categories. How many categories are there? How many categories are there in the red data book? 9. All right, there are 9 different categories. Acha, now tell me, Shubh is saying we put tiger in the pink page. True or false? False. Tiger is not critically endangered. No, 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 no. Tiger is endangered now. Tiger is not critically endangered. So tiger endangered है कहाँ आएगा? Where will tiger come? Red. Tiger is not in pink pages. Today tiger is endangered, not critically endangered. So let's look at the different categories. Different categories of red data book. All right, what does critically endangered mean? Okay, I'll tell you. Hold on, hold on. I'll tell you. There are 9 categories. First, EX, that stands for extinct. Extinct are those species जो हम सबको अलविदा कह के चली गई. Now they are not found. अब कहीं मिलता ही नहीं, पता नहीं कहां चला गया. All right, this is the same thing जो हेरा फेरी में खड़क सिंह कहता है जब उसको घनश्याम नहीं मिलता कि अभी तो यहीं था, पता नहीं, दिखता ही नहीं, कहां चला गया. That is what is extinct. Things have gone. Extinct are the species. Dodo bird, yes, extinct. These species have become extinct, not found anywhere. Not found anywhere. Second are EW. EW are the species which are extinct in the wild. Extinct in the wild. Extinct in the wild. They have become extinct in wild, but are preserved in zoos, national parks, or any protected area. कुछ बचे हैं, some are there in zoos, national parks, and some protected areas, but they are extinct in the wild. This is the second category, EW. The first is EX, extinct. पहली विलुप्त हो गई, टाटा बाय बाय खलास. Second is EW, जाओगी कभी तो बाय बाय टाटा खलास करेंगे आपको. EW, extinct in the wild. In the wild you are gone, but you are there somewhere in the zoos, botanical gardens, or protected areas. All right. Third is CR. CR stands for critically endangered. Critically endangered. After third, fourth, EN, endangered. Fourth, EN, endangered. Fifth, VU, vulnerable. Sixth, anti, near threatened. Near threatened. Seventh, LC, least concerned. Eighth, NE, not evaluated. And ninth, DD, data deficient. Quickly pen it down. Okay, Gagandeep, that's something really good. Naturally, Hasini, extinct in the wild means naturally they are out now. They are killed. All right, naturally they have become extinct. Now they are not found anywhere. ठीक है? All right. Now, the first one is extinct. Second is extinct in the wild. Now there is critically endangered, endangered, vulnerable, and near threatened. So you see, 3, 4, 5, 6. These 4 categories face threat. These 4 categories face threat, and the level of threat decreases from critically endangered to near threatened. White, जबकि white, not evaluated. DD is data deficient. ठीक है, DD is data deficient. देखिए प्रियंका, extinct in the wild basically means naturally they have become extinct. They are lying in some zoos or some kind of botanical garden or some kind of protected area. Few animals of that species are living, but in the wild naturally they are not found anywhere. For example, the white rhinoceros. Yes, correct, Shivraj. White rhinoceros. No, sparrow is not extinct. Neither sparrow is extinct in the wild. They are still found, but yes, now they are endangered. The common sparrow in India is endangered. Panda का देखना है. Panda I have to see. All right. No, tiger is not extinct in the wild. No. Tiger is found in the wild in India. Sundarban wild area में मिलता है tiger. All right. In Karnataka you find tiger. In West Bengal, in Sundarban you find tiger. All right. Sometimes in this class you find tiger. All right. Okay. Let's go ahead. ठीक है. All right. So tiger. हाँ ठीक है. अब पता है गूगल करते रहो. वो आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू टेक इनटू अकाउंट ईच एंड एवरी स्पीशीज. ये स्पीशीज कैसे याद करनी ये भी मैं बताता हूँ. ऑलराइट, डोंट वरी अबाउट इट. आई एम गोइंग टू टेल यू, डोंट वरी. सो critically endangered, vulnerable and near threatened, these 4 species face threat. Extinct and extinct in the wild तो बस खत्म है काम उनका. They are not threatened because they are almost gone. Critically endangered, extremely threatened. Endangered, seriously threatened. Vulnerable, really threatened. Near threatened is near threatened. Least concern बहुत है, कोई टेंशन नहीं है. Least concern is abundant, काफी है, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. Not evaluated, this species is still not evaluated to be classified in any one of them. और किसी species के लिए data sufficient नहीं है. That is data sufficient category. So these 9 category, the names are clear to all of you. Names clear है, ठीक है. अब देखो, critically endangered. एक काम करते हैं, this critically endangered, इसका क्राइटेरिया मैं आपको लिखवा देता हूं फटाफट. Alright, let's quickly pen it down. Or I can do one thing. I can give you this handout that will contain the criteria of a species to be classified as critically endangered, vulnerable and near threatened. So all right, वैसे मैं आपको बता देता हूँ. Critically endangered are those species which have a very high probability of extinction in the near coming few years. Similarly, vulnerable species are there. Similarly, endangered is there. These 4 species are classified on the basis of population reduction. Second criteria is small population and decline. All right, population पहले से small है, ऊपर से population reduce होती जा रही है. Probability of extinction. These are the criteria On the basis of what you are going to classify the species into either critically endangered, endangered, vulnerable, or near threatened. Endangered, vulnerable, and near threatened are found on red pages. They are found on red pages, whereas critically endangered is found on pink pages. They are found on pink pages. हाँ, अब critically endangered के लिए क्या criteria है? Exact criteria. Exact criteria for vulnerable, endangered, and near threatened. This I will give you today in the form of a sheet. Don't worry. All right, I'll give you this thing in the form of a sheet. How you are going to classify a species into critically endangered, endangered, near threatened, or vulnerable, and also discuss this once in the class. So do not worry about it. All right, there's very less likely a chance that UPSC might ask, but then UPSC is now breaching its limits. There is no limit for UPSC now. UPSC is breaching its limits to ask questions even from those topics which were not considered earlier, that UPSC can ask the question. So gather as much knowledge as you can, because there is no precise area from where you can say that UPSC will ask questions. It is unpredictable Public Service Commission, not Union Public Service Commission. Clear, everyone? Now, before going ahead, let me tell you one thing, that there is a lot of questions on national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. In previous year questions, there are questions on the names of national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. There is question on the names of the conservation status or threat status of species. How to prepare them? Well, the answer to this question is very simple. If you look at the trend of the questions that UPSC has asked, if you look at the trend of the question that UPSC has asked from these dimensions, UPSC has mainly focused upon those national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and species which were in news in last 1 year. Those wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, and any species which was in news for last 1 year, it is seen that UPSC generally asks those species and nothing else. Clear? Right? So UPSC asks questions from species, national parks, and wildlife sanctuaries mostly from current. I'm not saying always. Mostly from current. And among the species, please focus upon those species which are endemic to India, species which are critically endangered. It is generally seen that they generally go for asking endangered and critically endangered species which are mostly endemic to India. So any standard book that you are going to refer, that standard book is going to have the list of endemic, critically endangered, and endangered species. So please learn that along with the species which were in news in the last 1 year. This is the trick for attempting the question related to species in UPSC exam. Second, about national parks and wildlife sanctuary, again current are mostly asked, and in this please refer to the species that are present there in this wildlife sanctuary and national park. And second, any river या water body, any river or water body, if it flows through this national park or wildlife sanctuary, you will have to do it. These are the two areas from where questions are asked from national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. Right? Correct. Tiger Park in Bihar was recently in news, so yes. ठीक है. देखो, basically nv6332306@gmail.com, you basically include even the least concerned in the red data book, because it doesn't, you do not know what may be least concerned today might actually become endangered or critically endangered tomorrow, right? आदित्य, ये थोड़ा एडवांस कोर्स में आ जाता है, बट नॉट मच ऑफ अ डिफरेंस. ऑलराइट, फिर भी आई सजेस्ट दैट गिव इट अ रीडिंग वंस. ऑलराइट, ठीक है. It is often on a, see, it can be often in a year, in a couple of years, whenever the status of any species goes down, the red data book entry is automatically updated. All right, Shiv Raja. Okay. Chaliye, so we have ended up our discussion on biodiversity and the concepts related to biodiversity. We'll start with the climate change tomorrow only, right? So tomorrow we'll talk about climate change, global warming, all right, ozone hole, and a couple of conventions. So we'll begin tomorrow then. And tomorrow I'll give you the sheet related to the conservation or threat status of different species, right? Yes, yes, Fahim, yes. All right. So let's take a rest, give break to my throat, and okay. No, that is the calculation value. See, Rohit, that is the calculation value. All right, the species diversity fraction value becomes 0 when the biodiversity reaches infinite. Most probably, Priyanka, yes, most probably. Yes, Rudranil, enough. Those of you who attend the class after going home, after like not going home, certainly at home, you must be at home. When you look at the flow charts, does things fall in place to you? No, Anandini, no. All right, okay. Thank you, Fahim. Thank you. All right. Yes, denominator determines biodiversity in a way. All right, that's right. Chaliye, so we'll call it a day here and see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. All right, Sarkar Pritam, I'll do that. All right. Okay. Chaliye. Yes, only red has three categories: endangered, vulnerable, near threatened. Pink is there in green, critically endangered is there in pink. All right. Okay. No, Namita, as and when the status of a species change, as and when the status of a species change, the red data book also change. Just a minute, I'll give you my email ID. Some people are asking for it. Chaliye. Okay, so that's all for today's class. See you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Bye bye. Take care, everyone. Bye.